interject here a question, sir. In my last years, I have been dealing with trying to ameliorate the very situation you've described. And one of the first things I did after I wrote the actual Declaration of Independence in '76 was to return to the General Assembly of Virginia and submit a series of bills for their consideration, as it was the seed time for our new republic. And one of them was for the diffusion of knowledge among our people. As you well remember, education was a responsibility of the parent and the church. And I thought that the state should have some degree of responsibility for educating the young. I won't get into any details concerning that, but in my last years, I've been attempting to establish a university for our state of Virginia. And what I am asking is the enlightenment, is the reason, is the science that you briefly mentioned earlier, is that enabling our republic to grow not just in size and wealth, but in its concept for the freedom of people?
I'm optimistic as an American. I've always been this way, and I shall probably always be that way. But I've also been pragmatic on most things. And I sadly think that we are not the equal of our founding fathers when we talk about and act upon issues of personal freedom, duty, loyalty to our country. The fight, I had some fights with men of power, and men who felt it was their God-given right to own a factory or a mine or any of the modern devices that we have. They felt this, and yet they grew up under the Declaration. They grew up under our Constitution. But they did not grow up, I believe, with a sense of duty to the nation. I believe you served, sir, because you felt mainly it was your duty, not because you wanted something to accrue from it other than the stability of the nation under you. And I likewise with you, Mr. Jefferson, and certainly with you, Mr. Lincoln. But we tend to not always act as we talk.
And yet, coming off the Declaration of Independence, unalienable rights, created equal rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, the foundational ideals, concepts, that was in our hearts. It just has taken us time to move those through the Constitution and into our lives. And the framers of the Constitution, and of course I was the president of the Constitutional Convention, I just oversaw that. Adams and Madison and Hamilton and Livingston and Wilson and many others, they're the shakers and movers of putting that Constitution together. I got to have some input afterwards, but brilliant minds of taking these concepts, setting up a brand new form of government, never tried before in the history of mankind. A little bit of republic, a little bit of democracy, but we had no precedent. We were doing something. We, the people, we really meant it. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, we said this is what we wanted to do through this document. But when it was all said and done, we also, and when we signed that and we're ready to put it out for the states to ratify, and debate and then ratify, the opinion of the men there was this is a governing document, but if the virtue of the people ever faltered, the document would fail and the form of government that the document supported, a democratic republic, would fail. So what did we mean by virtue? Comes right down to what you said, President Roosevelt. Once we, the people, focused more on our own interests, on our own wealth, on our own power, than serving the country, and serving not only like all of us here have, and not only voting, but making sure the representatives that you voted for were there to serve the country. If it was to accumulate power and wealth and everything, well, now we're right back to aristocracy, oligarchies, and we lose, we the people. So, to instill virtue in the people, that they love the country more than they love their own interests, their own pastimes, their own recreations, focusing on the very vehicle that has made this country. And you talked about the opportunities and everything available in the early 1900s, and I am rejoicing that what was created has gone that far, even through what you've described as a terrible war. That spirit, that sense of virtue still there. Oh my. And I think we hope that that virtue will continue to where we, the American people, put the value of our country over our individual wants and needs. And
Let us decide that we are very fortunate to have this conversation.
Well, gentlemen, this has been a delightful time. I am glad that we were able to get together, and I hope we can do this again, at the convenience of everybody. I know we all have duties and obligations to attend to, and so with that, I propose that, we toast our country as we close this particular meeting, and hopefully get together again in the future. So, Mr. Washington, you have seniority, of course.
all right. I too have enjoyed this and seeing our country in perspective, what our hopes were, how they played out, realizing there's been difficulties, but have worked our way through it and are continuing what we had envisioned. So I toast the future for our nation. I toast the people that catch the vision of what we have not only started, but has sustained. And they, through character, through virtue, will do what's necessary to serve the country. And so my toast would be to the country.
Thank you all, gentlemen, for our conversation. I toast the capacity of man to use reason and freedoms for the good of one another as well as themselves. And I do hope that the generation that is on the stage currently will not lose the benefits that the founding generation have bequeathed to them, to the country.
To the country.
Well, I don't know that I could add anything to what has just been stated, but I have seen such extreme acrimony. I think I'm put in mind of something I said before I took office, and that was, we are not enemies, but friends. We must not become enemies. And small as well as great issues can turn men and women against one another unless we obtain the grace of forgiveness and commonality. And so I suppose I would like to toast to a continuance of the awareness that we are all brothers and sisters with the same difficulties, the same hopes and aspirations, and the spirit of equality that was posited by Mr. Jefferson, should last throughout not only current generations, but throughout all time. So to the spirit of equality before our Maker, I would like to toast.
I am profoundly grateful that our God and our fellow Americans have sought and found it pleasant and pleasing and right that each one of us has had the opportunity to sit in the office of the President of the United States. And I hope we have fulfilled our responsibility and obligation to them, and we've done it well enough that someday in the future, perhaps Americans unknown to us shall say, these four gentlemen did a pretty good job, and be recognized for it. So with that, I say, God bless America for love of country. Here we go.
God bless.
Here, here.